people coming into the lobby?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right. No worries.
Recording started, so you can make a start.
All right. Cool. Thanks, guys. Welcome to the Power Platform Dynamics 365 user group for July. Just to let you know, we are recording, so if you have any issues and you don't want to be visible or don't want to be heard, then probably just use the chat. Cool. So getting straight into it. Acknowledgement of country. We wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we are meeting on, the Waduk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay respect to elders past and present. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land, as well as acknowledge the contribution they make to the life of the city and this region. Okay, so it's just timing today. Having looking through the slide deck and that, I think we should be okay for time, but if we run a little bit over, that's okay, but if we're a lot over, I'll hurry people along. Also, this is an old slide, but I think it's always good to leave this in here. With the growth of Dynamics and the Power Platform, everything that's going on, there's always lots of ideas that are coming up that you might have. So please feel free to publish them, and you can also reach out to us in the community in these user groups to vote those ideas up as well. So if you've got an issue at work because of a bug or an improvement that you want to see happen, reach out and we can all help vote for that as well.
One thing I'd add there, Ben, is that the product group teams actually have a KPI to incorporate so many ideas in each now. And now that they've done a lot of the heavy lifting of the products, they really are scrutinising the ideas and trying to build as much of that stuff into the product. So do use it. Yeah,
I've seen a few blogs now from Microsoft people saying they really are starting to take a lot of that information from this. I think in the past they probably weren't as much as they used to, but yeah, there's definitely some traction on that now. So quick agenda, just a quick announcement on the Dynamics Community Australian Summit, and then we'll get straight into Dynamics Marketing, thanks to Renato, and I'll do a quick one tip on the new monitor for model-driven apps, and then we'll get into this new Dataflex for Teams and the new rebranding of CDS. So that's interesting times again. And then we'll just go to Q&A and then we'll close off, hopefully by 1. So just a quick one, the Australian Summit is on this year again, but it's virtual. So it's from the 19th to the 21st of August. I'm trying to reach out for some promo codes to see if we can get any discount for our Dynamics community locally. So you just watch this space. URL is just australiasummit.com. And I've just listed here a few reasons why. So I've had a few people going, there's still $500 Australian to register. So I've had a few people go, what do you get for that $500? So there's a few reasons here. This slide deck we'll publish out on the platform and we'll send out. So I won't go through them all here, but if you're keen to sort of see what you get, just go to their website there and have a hunt around and see if you feel it's worth it. I think it is because it's probably everyone who's in the Dynamics and Power Platform role for their job or as a customer, there's always stuff that you can learn from here. So I think it's definitely well worth it, even with it being virtual.
Are you sharing your screen, by the way, because we don't see anything?
Oh, sorry, you can't see anything.
We can see it. Just try leaving and rejoining.
So can you see the new screen with the Formula One racing car, customer journey?
Yep.
No, I can't see it still.
Is anyone else not able to see the screen? I just want to double check before we continue.
Just leave the meeting and rejoin it.
Yeah, we'll let you back in. Yep. Cool. Okay, so I'll hand you guys over to Renato from Nevada Solutions. He's going to give us a bit of a view into Dynamics 365 marketing around customer journeys. So over to you, Renato. I think if you just take over.
Yeah, I'm just opening the slide deck now. So cool, should be able to see that.
Cool. Yep.
Okay, so I'm not sure if how many people on the call have actually used, touched, seen, smelt, or understand what Dynamics 365 for marketing is. But essentially, it allows you to manage and automate all your marketing activity. It includes things like events, event portals, marketing execution, lead scoring, internet marketing, allows you to manage all your marketing content, your marketing templates, hooks nicely into LinkedIn lead gen, LinkedIn lead generation, and so forth, and a lot more. I'll just prefix this by what this is, a session is, and what it isn't. So it certainly is not a deep dive into any of the marketing sort of features, and I'm just going to show one very quick overview, which is the customer journeys. By the way, I just wanted to talk about this particular picture as well. So so this picture is that you see of this Formula 3 car is of a Perth boy who's 19 years old. His name's Callum Williams. He's racing in Formula 3 in the new format this year. And this is a picture of him a couple of weeks ago in Hungary, where he placed 5th on the pole, on the start grid, 5th on the start grid, and then crashed in the first corner. And on the second race, he started 29th and finished 14th or 15th. So up and coming. He races for a team in Switzerland called Gensa. And if anyone's interested, he's on Fox, or the Formula 3 series is on Fox, and it races the same day, same circuit as Formula 1. So a bit of a plug for young Callum Williams there. Anyway, enough of that. We'll go on to Dynamics. So very briefly, I'm not sure how many people may or may not know me. So as Ben was saying, my name's Ronaldo. There's a couple of Twitter handles and emails if you want to get in contact with me. So a little bit about me. I've been married 29 years, have 2 kids and a dog. I'm the principal consultant at Nevada Solutions, and been involved in the Microsoft technology stack for over 15 years, but originally started life as a chef. So bit of a tidbit. So what is a customer journey? So Dynamics 365 customer journeys really allow you to model, execute, and evaluate marketing campaign experiences for any prospective customers. This is essentially achieved in being able to configure tiles in a automated marketing pipeline. So those of you that are familiar with Dynamics and familiar with the business rules designer, you'll see that designing a customer journey is somewhat similar to this. So what I'll do is I'm actually going to go through a very quick demo of setting up a simple email campaign and talk you through some of the steps and talk you through what's involved and so forth. So I'm just going to switch over to another screen. Just bear with me. Right. So confirming everybody can see.
Yep.
Screen. Perfect. Okay. So essentially, when we go into the marketing app, there's a whole pile. You've got customer segments, subscription lists, marketing execution, events management, lead generation. You've got your internet marketing. You've got marketing content, templates, lead gen, and then there's a whole pile more to do with marketing. But what I'm going to focus on today is essentially a customer journey. So traditionally, when we start off, I'm going to start with a blank customer journey. So traditionally, when we start with a customer journey, we start with a segment, right? So very easily being able to drag on the designer, the tile, and as you know, if you've used the business rules engine, you can actually start to have a look at these. So we can either start with a new segment, or we can drag on existing segments and so forth. Once we've got a segment that we're working with. It's just really simply starting to drag on. And so as we're dragging on these tiles, we can start to determine whether we're using existing EDMs or email messages, or we creating a new one. So for this instance, I'll just quickly create a new one. I'll leave it at that. So once we've created these email messages, we can actually start to have decisions. So as an example, I'll have a trigger here, and the trigger might be, you know, if the email has been opened, bounced, delivered, any of the clicks been linked on. Within this particular journey, we can add things like event registrations, and then, you know, part of the triggers could be if a user has registered for an event or not. So we can start to very quickly, as far as these triggers go through, and say, as an example, if the email has been opened, we may then, I don't know, create an activity here. And if the email hasn't been opened, we might wait, say 5 days, and then send them another email message, right? So you can start to see there's a whole pile you can do around automating that whole journey. So this could be your monthly newsletters. This could be a promotional newsletter that you're sending out. This could be for things like event registrations. So designing out your particular journey and having your particular segments here as well. And you can do things like update records, launch workflows that you may have, send them off to a marketing page, etc. Once we're happy with the designer, we go through and we start setting up the general settings. So here we look at things like your start date and your end date as well. And then once we're happy with that and we've checked for errors and we go live, essentially what happens is that marketing or that customer journey starts to, will start as soon as we've hit that start date and time. And we'll continue to send new messages to contacts that have been added to the segmentation and or marketing list until the end of that particular time as well. Now, whilst the journey's running, Dynamics is gathering a whole pile of insights into that particular journey. Things like email interactions, whether they have opened an email, whether they have, you know, completed a form, they have registered for an event, they have completed a survey, etc. So it provides you a lot of insights into what's happening through that customer journey. There's some other nice features too around the designer here, is you can start to do some A/B testing as well. So testing certain parts of your segment to open one particular version of the email to identify which ones are actually, you know, being a lot more performant and so forth. So that, in a very high level nutshell, is a customer journey. You can actually then save these customer journeys as templates for reusability. So if you're having an example, as I said before, if you've got a monthly email or EDM that you're sending out, and you've got various triggers and so forth, or, you know, if they've opened it, you want to invite them to a particular event, you can actually start to leverage that and save that as a template, and then reuse that every time you go ahead and create a you know, your monthly newsletters. Now, the other nice thing about this is you can actually have this schedule done in advance using the start and end times, and really, you know, if I've got a campaign running over the next 3 months with a particular marketing initiative. I can have all my journeys predefined. I can have my marketing team go off and build these out and approve these, and essentially have a set and forget sort of mentality. Well, set them, not forget them. Set them in the sense that they're ready to go, and then monitor those during the execution stage to see how they're progressing, and so forth. So that's pretty much a customer journey in a particular nutshell. One thing I've sort of glossed over is segments. So with regards to segments are really simple to use, and you can set these up as dynamic segments and have these particular rules that will actually go through and segment my particular contacts. And as I said, it's dynamic. So if a new member gets added and they fit this particular criteria during that particular journey, whilst it's running, they'll be able to, or they'll actually start to receive that those newsletters or invitations to events and so forth.
So just to interrupt you there, one of the nice new features that's coming in October is the natural language query, and so you'll be able to type in, "Give me all customers that live in Armidale that are under 40 years of age," and it will generate the query for you.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So there's a whole like when we first started working in the marketing space to where it is today, there's been dramatic leaps and bounds as far as functionality goes, and even where we've implemented these for customers in the past, there's just new features coming out that existing customers are starting to leverage as well. So are there any questions regarding what you've seen, or did you want to leave that to the end, to the Q&A section? I think there's I had one more slide, which is just a pile of resources that links to Microsoft documentation around just some marketing videos and so forth. No questions?
There's a couple of things I guess I'll just add. There's quite a lot of AI functionality that's been built into marketing that's not always sort of visible at first look. So when you create your emails, it will automatically do a spam score on them and warn you if it thinks that email is going to get blocked because of the wording you've used or the structure of it. So that's one thing. Another thing it will do is when it's sending out the emails, it will look at the ones that are getting opened the most and the times that they're getting open. So it will try to target that user group with that sending out emails around that same time. And there's several more, but those are a couple of ones that are quite interesting and not always obvious. And
yeah, that spam check is really useful as well. We find, trying to get the, trying to reduce the risk of being classified as spam as well. And Pete, I do like the fact that it starts to learn that open rates are best between these particular hours, or click-through rates are, and it'll sort of hold that off and start to send those to those segments based upon historical information. So yeah, it's really cool, and I can only see this progressing more and more in the future. And like you're saying, that natural language selector is something that we're really looking forward to as well.
Yeah. Quick question for you, Renato. How do you find the email template editor? Because I know with on the Click Dimensions competitor product, we have had a few complaints in the past that there was it's quite a bit of a limitation to the designer, and people were having to jump out to a proper style web designer, copy the HTML across. Have you had any complaints, or does it work really well in this?
We've had issues with the designer, not only in the Dynamics world, but when we're using other third-party EDM software as well, depending on how complex and how customized you want that particular email to be. It's always going to be a challenge. And emails, all the CSS stuff we learn around cascading style sheets and not doing inline styles. Forget all that when you're doing email marketing. You want to be doing, that inline styles and so forth, which, it is challenging. It is always getting better. And as you can see, there's a lot of built-in stuff with regards to some basic elements and advanced elements like, survey, event registration, QR codes, and so forth. It is, once you've built out your email template, to me, it's about, building out that repeatable IP and that repeatable marketing collateral as well. So we try and generally look at standardizing, what a particular email may be before we send it out, and then repurpose those over and over again. So,
cool.
There's always been challenges with creating custom HTML templates for any EDM product.
So the other thing that it is an art creating emails as well. So one of the things Dynamics includes is litmus tests. Which I think Ronaldo's just going to show you now. But actually having an email that will look good on every different type of email client on different operating systems on browsers is not easy. So the standard templates, you're almost better off starting from one of those and modifying it than trying to build one yourself, because trying to build one yourself that will look good on all those browsers would be an impossible task or a lot of effort.
Yeah, I mean, I would have liked to have sent it out, but you can see at the top here, I've used up all my credits for this particular month. So, but yeah, sending test emails and so forth, and doing all your testing. You can pay for third-party testing, litmus tests as well. You do get a small amount with your subscription, but yeah, it is. You're right, Peter. It is a real art, and we always look for an existing email template that is probably 80% of where we want it to be, and we start to modify from there.
Yeah,
cool. Okay, well that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about today. There's a lot more in the platform around, like events is a massive part of the Dynamics marketing platform as well, and managing hotels and rooms and everything else as well. So we'll save that for another day. But customer journeys, really great for sending out EDMs and inviting people to events and marketing lists and surveys and forms. So, if you're not using it and you're already using a third-party tool, I'd recommend evaluating, especially this compared to Click Dimensions as well. To be honest, I haven't used Click Dimensions in the past. We fell straight into Dynamics marketing, and like I said, if Microsoft do something really well, is they play catch up faster and better than any other organisation on this earth. And I think that's been proven for years and years with everything that they do.
Yeah, I agree with that. Cool, thanks, Ronaldo. Appreciate your time for presenting that. I'll take you up on the offer to show off events for another time.
No worries.
Yeah, cool. All right, so I'll just switch back to the presentation. And can everyone see that okay?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. All right, so just recently there was a new addition to the Monitor toolset for monitoring your Dynamics, Power Platform applications. Before it was just Canvas only, but now they've included the model-driven app. So essentially what is Monitor, this provides a way to stream events from a user session, so from the client side on the browser to diagnose an issue. So it actually brings it across to almost into the server side, which is quite handy. And there's a whole bunch of events it does support at the moment. There's a whole bunch it doesn't. So it is quite technical in terms of what the different events are that occur on the browser. Excuse me. But for any developer or hardcore Power Apps user, knows that sometimes when you do get performance issues, the first place you usually check is on the browser side, just to see if it's anything to do with the internet connection or the client-side browser or the machine before you go log a ticket with Microsoft. So it's really handy now that they've got this new addition. So I've just got to kick it off. It's actually quite simple now. So in the makes.powerapp.com area, you might have a bunch of applications. And here I've got this Wicked Paragliders one here. I've got there's a model-driven app. So you just click on I'll just minimize. You click on the monitor button, and there's two places. There's monitor in the top bar there, command bar, or just in the context-sensitive menu, there and there. And you'll get taken to this page here. So it's just like a monitoring page where all the statistics will come up. However, getting to this page is not, you need to go one more step further before it starts loading the data in. And just one thing I didn't show on these slides is that one of the cool things with this is that in the past, when you've had a client issue, a performance issue, usually you have, like, especially if you're in IT support, you normally have to go to the machine with the end user to go and either turn on, crank up the F12, the network performance monitor, or use the new it's been around for a while now. There's like a performance table that you can get going on the client side, but you had to go to that user. One of the cool benefits now that they've done with this is that you can invite people, so you can stay remote. You can invite them to use the app in monitor mode, and it allows that particular session until they close their browser down to start tracking everything that's going on. You don't need to go to them or use some remote desktop software to get access to their machine and walk them through it. So that's a really neat feature. However, I think I couldn't get the invite thing to work, and there was a few other people who wrote some blogs saying there might be an issue with it at the moment, but I'm sure they'll sort that out soon if it hasn't already. There was a workaround to that as well. So the next step here is just to click on Play Model Driven App, and what will happen is that you'll get this screen pop up, and then you'll see this bar come up when the app loads. So you'll still see the app as per normal, but you'll get this sort of alert box come up. And then I'll jump in and do a demo. I did have a little recording here, I thought, just in case the internet wasn't too good. So what I've done here, I've clicked on Play Model Driven App, and I've left the stats on the left, and I've got a little app on the right. It's very simple. It's just a little grid, and you can see the information that's coming through. And one of the key events I usually go to is the full load. It just shows us how long it took. The only weird thing is that this is saying 7 seconds, and I do it again. I just clear the data and do a refresh. And I think this recording is actually in time. It hasn't slowed down. And this grid loaded more than the 6 or 7 seconds. However, the full data load was saying it took a bit longer. So that was interesting. But I was only counting in my head, so probably not that accurate, but that was interesting. But you can see how the data just comes through. And to stop the monitoring session, you just close down that your application in the browser, and it stops recording. As you can see as well, there's no refresh button on the stats on the left-hand side. It loads automatically, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, it's called new monitor util, and it's probably going to improve over time. I reckon they'll include more events. One thing I was going to show in another user group session was application insights. However, that takes a little bit to set up, where this is really easy. You don't get as much functionality, obviously, but it gives you something to start off with, just to help, maybe get into what's causing most of your JavaScript errors, or a particular resource that's taking a long time to load. Maybe you've got a JavaScript CDM file that's getting blocked by a proxy or something. So you should be able to identify these issues fairly quickly with this new monitor tool. Anyway, that's all I wanted to show. So I'll hand you guys over to Peter for the Dataflex.
Thanks, Ben. Hopefully you can see my slide, if you can just confirm.
Yes, we can. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So Dataflex was the big announcement at last week's Inspire conference, and the Microsoft product group had been keeping it to themselves. So the field didn't really hear about it until literally the day it was announced, although there had been some rumors that there was some work going on CDS Lite, as it was referred to. And I guess there were two things that were driving the decision to rename Dataflex. So Common Data Service became Dataflex Pro, and then also released Dataflex, which is a lightweight version of that. The first was that we saw a lot of customers were deploying Power Apps via Teams. Teams is almost becoming the new kind of Windows desktop, where people log in and do their work in Teams. And obviously there's been a huge amount of development effort going to Teams in recent times because of COVID and people working remotely and so on. And we were seeing a lot of a lot of deployments of Power Apps in Teams. The other thing was that we had lots of people that were using the free or the M365 licenses to build apps, but they were building them off of SharePoint lists. And we saw that as being a sort of a ticking time bomb, in that SharePoint is not really ideally suited as being a relational data store. And there are various limits and all that people were going to hit. So the idea of releasing Dataflex was to make it easier to build apps that live within Teams and obviously help drive and reinforce Teams usage, but also to provide a better data store for that data instead of putting it in SharePoint lists, and that provided an upgrade path for customers once they outgrow Dataflex. So some of the MVPs actually were on the private preview program, and one of those is Jukka Niiranen, and he actually published a really good article on his website there, which I've got the link on the slide there. And in fact, his post was better than the Microsoft one in explaining it, and his graphic, which I've got here, was used by a lot of the media as well, because it does explain it pretty well as well. So effectively what Microsoft said is, if you are deploying Teams, then you get access to Dataflex, and for no additional cost. And that is a subset of features of what's in the full Dataflex Pro or the old common data service. And I'll talk about the differences in a minute. Effectively, Dataflex Pro is a database that underpins Dynamics and Power Apps. But one distinction is that you can't move a Dataflex Pro environment to become a Dynamics environment at the moment. That has been a limitation. It is something that's on the roadmap, but one of the blockers for that is that there's a lot of legacy tables and baggage, for lack of a better word, that sits in Dynamics, and Microsoft didn't really want people to carry that forward. So there's stuff like around the classic interface and other bits and pieces. So until that's all been cleared out of Dynamics, there's still no way of upgrading a Dataflex Pro Power App environment to make it a Dynamics environment. The other thing, just to update on this slide as well, Jukka's put some licensing costs there, which are retail in prices in USD. There has been for a while a Power Apps and Teams license, which was $7, and I believe that is still continuing. So if you've got a requirement for an app that can't use the standard Dataflex, that needs functionality of Dataflex Pro, then there is a slightly cheaper license than the standard per app license. The other thing to mention is the majority of customers are going for per user licenses, and many of them are actually licensing it across their enterprise. And we substantially discount those prices depending on numbers, but if it's thousands of users, it's less than 50% of those prices. So a lot of people go, Power Apps is too expensive. My answer to you would be, talk to us, because we can do all sorts of either discounts or ramp licensing deals and so on. So I'll just start off looking at Dataflex, and basically when you go to create an app within Teams, you can launch the app editor, and the way that you create your table is just like it would be creating a spreadsheet. The only real difference is that there are data types that you can specify, but essentially it is very similar to an Excel-like experience. So just going to take you through, there's a bit of an animated GIF here that actually just shows you that experience of actually going in and adding columns. So if you are familiar with using SharePoint lists, it's a very similar experience to that. I'm not a SharePoint expert, so I'm not sure exactly what the differences are between a Dataflex database or data table and a SharePoint list. but from an authoring experience, it's very similar, I believe. The other thing was we wanted to make it very easy, as I said, to deploy Power Apps within Teams. And so there is this concept of a Teams app store where an organization can publish its apps and people can just install them in a particular team site. You can also still, as I mentioned, if you've developed a full Power App with the paid for license, you can of course still deploy that via Teams. But effectively, one of the first things you'll notice with Dataflex is that it doesn't have the full, role-based security, field-level security that you have in Dataflex Pro. So effectively, this is the same sort of security you get with SharePoint lists, where when you create a team, that creates a Dataflex environment, and when you manage access to that team, that is also granting access to that Dataflex table. So it's not as granular as it is with the full Dataflex Pro. Also, when you delete that team, it deletes that environment as well. So that's one other thing to be aware of. So as of last night, this was the only information I had regarding the difference between Dataflex and Dataflex Pro. But there was actually a web article that was published overnight. So I'll go on to that in a moment. That gives a little bit more detail. But effectively, first of all, the key difference is Dataflex is just for use within Microsoft Teams, whereas with the full Power Apps, you can deploy it web, mobile, desktop, Outlook, Excel integration, etc. The second thing is that there are some connectors that you can use with Dataflex, but it doesn't support the full range of connectors, and it doesn't have the full range of data types that you get. And as it mentions there, the common data model stuff isn't available in Dataflex either. So when you spin up a normal Power Apps environment, you'll see that you get all of our account and contact and some of those other entities in that environment. With a Dataflex environment, it is completely blank when you start. There are no tables in it. The other thing you get with the full Dataflex Pro is things like relevant search. You can also automatically sync data into an Azure Data Lake from a Dataflex Pro environment. There's also some more enhanced reporting that you get. You get offline capabilities as well. And as I mentioned, you do get some of these extended data types like customer and currency. So the connectors, just to reiterate, you can only connect to Office 365 and the Dataflex tables itself with the Teams version. Obviously, with the paid version, you get access to all the 350 or more connectors that we've got. And I've already talked about the security components. And then also, you get all the additional functionality with Dataflex Pro around APIs, plugins. You get SQL Server reporting services, paginated reports. You get that, as I mentioned, the security in terms of you get all the auditing capabilities, the hierarchical security, and so on. And so this article or this page gives a little bit more detail. I might just see if I can flip to the web article that I posted on LinkedIn this morning, which goes into a little bit more detail here. So if I just scroll down through this, so it talks about the different data types that you can get, but it stresses here you don't get the offline capability. Likewise, you do get SSRS reports with Dataflex Pro, and you get the API access and the plugins. And then there also are some capacity limits, but again, I will stress, if you're coming from using SharePoint lists, then Dataflex won't be, you probably won't notice any limits in terms of capacity and so on. Obviously, if you have been using Dataflex Pro, you will really notice that it is quite limited in that regard. So it's really, just to reiterate, it was really to stop people using Excel and SharePoint lists as a data source. It was to give them a proper relational database. The thing is as well, though, is if you do hit any of these limits, or in terms of either size or capacity, then you can just buy a Dataflex Pro license, and they literally just flick a switch, and you're in that new environment. So there's no technical debt, there's no migration or anything. It's literally you just turn on a license, and you've got all that additional functionality. Your environment's upgraded to a Dataflex Pro one, and there's nothing that you need to do. So yeah, just on the security front, we've mentioned these, but the security roles for Dataflex standard is just very limited, aligned to Teams and SharePoint style of security. Whereas with the Pro version, you get all of the business unit and the keys and field level security and so on. And I would say that auditing as well is important. So for many of our enterprise customers, that's actually the stuff that they want. And so, yeah, Dataflex is great for starting, but we see a lot of enterprises would want the functionality that's in the full version. And then again, just to stress the integration options as well. Dataflex Pro's got far more capability there, whereas with the Teams version, you've just got Power Automate. So look, that was, I guess, a bit of a whistle-stop tour through the changes. The other thing I'll just mention that went hand in hand with that announcement was also the availability of the Power Virtual Agent for Teams, and that is also free. The only thing that you would have to pay for there is a lot of the power of the chatbots comes when you integrate it to some of your enterprise systems. So we've had lots of organizations, for example, that have had frequently asked questions or HR style questions due to COVID. The best thing you can do there is we have enterprise flow licenses, which are unlimited users. You just pay per flow. And that would give you the premium connectors then to connect to, Oracle or SQL or ServiceNow or whatever other systems you need to integrate with. So that's $500 a month, and that gives you 5 different flows, but unlimited users on that. So we expect to see a lot of uptake of Power Virtual Agents as well now, given that that's available, because a lot of customers were deploying those internally rather than customer facing. So this is a great way for them to kind of get familiar with the tools and get some experience under their belt before then building customer facing bots. So with that, that's me done, but happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Peter. I think we just got John Birchnall there just asking about whether we can create custom option sets. If what you're saying about relational databases is correct, I'm assuming if we can't create custom option sets, we can at least probably create a reference table with a relationship to a field on the parent.
Yeah, so it is a relational model, so you can, as you say, create lookup tables.
Yep. It's just the control might be a bit different between the two. Yeah. Okay, John. I hope that answers your question. Didn't want to miss it.
I haven't been able to get my hands on it yet to try out some of this stuff, but what I would say is that a lot of people say you probably should be using relational tables rather than option sets anyway. Just because even things like reporting off of, although it's got better now, reporting off option sets used to be horrible, and there's a whole load of other things. And more often than not, you'd create an option set and then realize there was additional attributes that you wanted to add to that data set for reporting. And of course, an option set, you've just got one column, you can't add those attributes. So probably using lookup tables is a better design pattern anyway.
Yeah, and you've got the security around at a record level, I guess, for if you go to the reference entity model as opposed to option sets. Cool. Any other questions at all? I think that was it. I think we presented well. Cool. All right. Thanks, Peter, for presenting that. That was good. I'll just quickly go back to my slide. So our next presentation will be same time next month. So it's on the 27th of August. I'm assuming we're all happy with this time slot at lunchtime. I think I'm getting a lot of good feedback that it is, but if there's anyone who's not happy with that, just shout out and let us know. As always on the hunt for more presenters for anything. So if there's anything if anyone has a client at work, or if you are a client and you want to show something really cool that you've implemented in the Power Platform or in a Site of Dynamics app, we want to hear from you guys. We're always keen to share out some of the stuff we're working on. And that's pretty much it. If you want to provide any feedback on the meeting, there's a QR code there. So we'll send, I guess, if Renato and Peter, you're okay with it, I'll push this slide out via the Dynamics 365 platform and maybe even LinkedIn. I think it should be okay. Get it out there, because I think there's probably a few people
no
who keen to get a copy. Yeah, cool. All right.
Sorry, Ben, one other quick announcement that people may have missed was that Forms Pro has also been renamed.
Yes, yeah.
And that's called Customer Voice now, not to be confused with Voice of the Customer, which was deprecated. I guess the reason for it is twofold. Microsoft are really focusing on it as a customer feedback tool rather than just as an advanced forms tool. And so a lot of we've always had that analytics component to it, but it really is getting tightly integrated to customer insights tool as well now. So, an example might be customer gives you some negative feedback in a risk survey. That would automatically maybe trigger a task in Dynamic CRM to say, okay, you should give this customer a courtesy call because they're unhappy. Or there may be some other sentiment you get back that customer insights will create a customer segment or marketing campaign for you. So I guess that ties back to Ronaldo's presentation that customer insights is a really good tool for creating marketing segments as well, because it can look across data that sits outside of CRM as well as the CRM data to suggest customers for particular campaigns.
Yeah, cool. All right. If there's no other questions or anything else, I think that pretty much wraps it up. So I guess we'll see you guys in a month's time. Thank you guys, Renato and Peter, for presenting. Appreciate it. And we'll see you next month.
Thanks, everybody.
Cool. Thank you very much. Catch you later.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.